Hi guys, hope you're all well. Welcome back to the check-in. I want to talk about fantasy today. It's something that I've been pondering on for a while. And I think it's something that we all have, really. Because I think that the world is... It appears to me that no matter how much we have in our lives, we're never completely happy. We're always longing for more, and we always just seem to be in, well, of course I can't talk about everybody, but I think we can say that there's a fair proportion of people out there in the world that I mean, and a lot of people are rightfully so, rightfully dissatisfied and just disinterested in their own lives, and some of that is justified, and in many cases it's very justified, depending on all sorts of things that are going on, whether it's violence they're experiencing or issues in their career world, in their jobs, in their interpersonal relationships, their social lives, and just whatever it is that's happening in your life, whatever it is that's going on, that's making you want more, or even just want something that perhaps is unrealistic, unachievable, and just a fantasy, really. And the reason I want to make this video is because I kind of wanted to talk about the importance of having fantasies and why we have them, really, from my perspective. I think the reason we have fantasies is because I think there's an element within ourselves that wants to be played out, but ultimately we know that it's, well, I think in our minds, the whatever it is that you'd like to do or whatever is something that perhaps if you was to do it in real life, it could very well turn out to be something destructive, costly, or even just hugely disappointing if you was to actually pursue whatever fantasies it is that you have. But on the other end, it could be that those fantasies turn out to be really positive things. It could turn out to be that those things lead you down paths that can change your life for the better. Or it could be that those fantasies just lead you to playing out those fantasies, lead you on to other fantasies. Part of the process of existing is the aspect of boredom. And I think that's where the fantasies kind of start from, really. I think obviously there's an element of childhood psychology that perhaps evolves and has a role to play in what we fantasize about. Perhaps that's because of restrictions for childhood or restrictions for our teens. And I think as well, of course, that whole hormonal period, there's puberty years, there's teenage years, even as a young adult, there's things you want to do, there's things you want to experience, and I'm not just talking on a sexual level, just the whole idea of having a Ferrari and 20 girls in the back of the car, a wallet full of cash. Certainly as a young man, anyway. And of course, I'm sort of stereotyping here, and it seems to be a common trait from my videos. But you know that I'm not talking. Well, I hope you do. I'm not talking about everybody, because obviously I'm not, and that would be insane. But I think there's a lot of in regards to sexual fantasies. I think most adults have sexual fantasies, and I think part of that reason is because of the maybe it's our sexual immaturity, maybe it's a dissatisfaction from our relationships, perhaps our partners aren't pleasing us or giving us what we feel that we need or just what we want, and and that applies to them as well. I mean, they might want something from us that they're too embarrassed to talk about, to be open about. But there's just fantasies. I mean, I think I would probably say that on an average day, we probably at least fantasize at least twice about something, perhaps. Well, I certainly do. It's not normally every day, but it's every couple of days I might think about something or other. I'm not just talking about in a sexual way. I just mean just in general. I mean, I fantasize sometimes about running away and sort of starting a life by myself. I sometimes fantasize about just sort of letting my ego run wild. Really, is kind of how I describe it. Really, and I think that's part and parcel of the whole obsession with fantasy, and why we can't seem to get out of our heads. It's just part of us. It's part of our ego, and our ego is part of our identity, or certainly the identity that we put on show. But fantasies are important, I think, because in many ways I think they're more important to just. I think of course, it depends on your own situation, context, and what's going on. Sometimes it's the best thing to do is just play out those fantasies in real life and see if they actually, check out as to what you thought they were. Because a lot of the time, everybody can fantasize about things, but it doesn't necessarily mean that in real life that's exactly how it's going to be. In fact, I'd say 9 times out of 10, the things that you might think about, whatever it is, will probably be to some extent different to what you perceive them to be, or what you perceive the experience is going to be like for you. Part of it living just in general is trying to fill that void of boredom. And I think that's one of the reasons that your mind develops such things, or you to some extent develop them, whether consciously or subconsciously, because it's a way of it's sort of psychological freedom, really, I guess. And I think it's really just about the restrictions and reserved nature of life, really, in general, because there's so many different. Who hasn't fantasized about killing somebody, or seeing somebody sometimes just horrific things. Not necessarily because you like it or anything, nothing like that. It's just, there's just an element of curiosity in us that's, well, more than an element. There's a huge amount of curiosity in us. And I think that when we feel that we're being held back, our minds start to go into overdrive, I think. Even if that's not actually true, and probably in many cases it's not true. But I think certainly when it is true, that when you are being restricted in whatever that is, whatever you deem that to be, that has the consequence of sort of shaping the things that you want, even though you know, whether legally or illegally, that you can't have. And so it really sort of, in the end, it becomes about self-control and self-discipline. But I think of course it all depends on what the fantasy is. And if you feel that it's something that's not going to destroy your life, or it's something that's obviously within the law, and it's not going to affect anybody really, or you hope they certainly don't plan on it affecting, then I'd say play it out. But of course, the reality of it is, and we can all sit here and pretend that we don't have dark and twisted thoughts and, just sort of intrusive thoughts. We all do. Well, a lot of us do. I certainly do. And have, and probably will continue to have. So in the end, I really just think it's about, well, I guess a part of it is about questioning where you are in life and why are you having such fantasies? Why are you thinking about such things? Maybe it's just, like I said earlier, it's just the simple fact that is you're just disinterested in where you are in your life now. Things aren't what you want them to be, or maybe you just aren't open enough. Maybe, whether it's you're not open enough with yourself about who you are, what you want, where you're going. What do you want out of life? Do you just want to be bound by your thoughts, or do you want to explore them more? That's up to you. But of course, that's not the case for everybody, and that's where sometimes fantasies can turn into destructive and damaging structures within ourselves, and obviously the consequences that come from some of those types of things have an impact on our family, our friends, our relationships, everything. So we have to be careful. But but ultimately it's part and parcel of being a human being, that we have a brain that's constantly, certainly if you're sort of, I think if you're more introverted, as I am, well, I can only really speak for myself, really, obviously, but for me, my mind goes into overdrive a lot, and sometimes it's difficult to slow it down. I just like to think. I enjoy the process of thinking. I enjoy taking a step back sometimes from what's considered the norm and just having a look from a different angle, just trying to observe it from above almost. I think that's important, and I think that analysing the things that arouse you, and I don't just mean that in a sort of sexual manner, the things that arouse you, that make you fantasize about different things. I think you need to be very, very honest with yourself about why you think that you have those things, and if you feel that those things are overly intrusive and even just potentially dangerous to yourself, then I would suggest that you get help. Everybody has fantasies. Some people act on them, some people don't. I've acted on some myself in the past. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it doesn't. But I would say this. I think a good 70% of the time it's just better to leave them in your head. Because quite often, as I've said before, previously in the video, they can be they can lead to all sorts of issues, and in reality a lot of things aren't actually as good as they are in your head, because in your head you idealize everything. There's no restraints, there's no restrictions within your mind. Nobody can control your thoughts. Well, for the time being. And sometimes that's as I've said in another video on this channel. Sometimes it's best to not reveal everything about yourself, and I don't mean that in some sort of insidious way. Sometimes just don't let everybody see everything about you, and I think that's why the boredom happens. Is sometimes when you reveal too much. When you're too open, when you're too honest, people take advantage of that. They see it, unfortunately, as people often say, it's seen as a sort of weakness. Sometimes you just got to be strong-willed in yourself and just be, I'm not talking about hiding secrets or anything like that. I'm just saying that you don't have to always show the full elements of yourself. In fact, that's why life gets boring life gets boring when you let other people set their expectations of you, and then you don't meet them, and then you become very, very quickly unhappy. Don't let other people decide what your life should be or shouldn't be. That's really up to you. If you want to fantasize about whatever it is, as long as it's not just, obviously things that are disgusting and are illegal or whatever, then that's of your doing. That's your, in my opinion, that's your right. Your thoughts is your the only real true freedom you really have is psychological freedom, but obviously that can change in different circumstances. But ultimately, the person that is in your head, because that's where we are really. That is our personality. That is us. Our brain. Our personality is our brain. That's where we are located. The outside part of the body is really just there to interact, but sometimes don't let it out. Don't let your personality out too much. Be you, but know when to restrict what you outsource, what you project. Because if you project too much, there'll be nothing left of you. You are you at the end of the day. This is your life. Your brain is yours, your thoughts are yours. Your life is yours to a certain degree. Just remember that. Yes, we need company, we need the right amount of socialising and interaction with other human beings, of course. But one of the most important things in life is to know how much time you need for yourself. Spending time getting to know yourself is one of the biggest blessings you can have in life, in my opinion. It's a crazy old world, and you know that, like I said, the clock is ticking. It's ticking away, and it's just going, and you can't control it. Not yet. Not until the technology's there to slow down. You know, the cells that cause you to age. And until then, that's it. You're not in control and completely, but there's elements of yourself that you are in control of, and that's what you need to work on, and that's what you need to be aware of. And if everybody could do that, there would be so much more respect and understanding, and it would be a much more compassionate world if we meditated more, reflected more, and had more introversion, really. But life is about balance, and we need opposites. But back onto the topic of fantasies. Don't be scared to be honest with yourself about what you think you like, or what you actually do like, but are just too scared to talk about. Or just some things that you whether it's wishful thinking or delusion, whatever. Just play it out in your head. Play it out. Life is to some extent a game anyway. Play it before people play you. Play yourself. Don't let other people play you. Thanks for checking in today, guys. I wish you all well, and thank you very much for watching the video, or rather listening, because this is going to be completely blacked out. So take care. See you soon.